Today, well, first of all, we're going to start with our mission statement. I'm Chantel. I'm with Career and Internship Services. It's our job to engage you in the career planning process through self-assessment, understanding of what is available in the world of work so you can set goals and market yourself. And I'm reading this. We'll help connect you with employers to help you embark on a successful career path, whatever you determine that to be. And that is what we are here to do. How we do that is through different services like mycatcareers.com. Hopefully you are all on mycatcareers.com. If not, I highly suggest you pick up a card, or there's an instruction sheet over there, a little more detail about how to get registered and how to search for jobs on mycatcareers. All kinds of stuff on there, student employment if you need to work part-time while you're going to school, if you need summer jobs, if you need a job just for the weekend. We have people calling all the time that I need help moving firewood today. So if you need a temporary job or just some quick cash, get on there. There's also internships available. So as you're working towards your career path, you want to try out some jobs, maybe you need the internship credit with your program. Internships are also listed on there, and then of course full-time employment. This is available to you as an alumni after you graduate forever. So remember your login and password the rest of your life. We also offer career coaching and advising, and these career coaches are wonderful. They'll help you figure out, they'll do some resume critiques with you, mock interviewing, so that you're ready for things like on-campus interviews. You'll have your resume ready when for career fair, when we have our career fairs. Like I said, alumni employment also, we have a lot of employers that are looking for experienced workers as well. So once you graduate, if you change jobs, if something happens in the economy, we've had a lot of alumni recently getting back online and calling to get their logins and passwords and learn how to use mycatcareers. We offer fairs, workshops, presentations all the time. There's also another brochure. Forgive me for having to get up and down like this. All kinds of workshops on this brochure on the back. Obviously, we're towards the end of the semester. There's only a few left this semester, but we'll have a whole new one here in just another month or so. And then we have a library full of resources for you in our office. So please swing by. We're right over there in 177. There for you, and all of our services are free to you as well. This is our career model. The career coaches will work with you on this. Usually, generally, during your freshman year, you'll start with the self-assessment, figure out what motivates you, what are your interests, work that into the world of work. How does that fit into that world of work? What's going to be a good path for you? And then set goals. Working from that, setting some goals on where do I go from here, try some internships, maybe study abroad, try some summer jobs, that kind of thing, and then working finally. So you usually go from your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, really hit the job searching hard at that point, doing some on-campus interviews, and they'll help you figure out how to negotiate an offer.
Well, okay, I think I'm supposed to begin. I'm done, and right now I work over here in the tech park as Director of Human Resources with a little biotech company called Riverside Pharmaceuticals. I took an extremely circuitous path to get to that place, which began as an English major at a competitor of the Bobcats, University of Northern Colorado, Greeley, is where I did my undergrad work and where I got my English major degree, and also education, because my goal at that stage of life was real clear for me. I wanted to be a high school teacher, and I wanted to be a high school football and basketball coach. And by the time I finished my program at UNC, it became clear that I just wanted to get the best paying job I could find as a teacher and coach, and that happened to be a school district in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. So a guy who'd grown up in western Colorado, lived my life in the mountains, loved skiing, found myself in the metro area of northwest Chicago, and really like the people there, love teaching, love coaching. Before I forget to say this, I want to tell you that when I listen to the information Chantel talks to you all about, it just dazzles me. I mean, what I wouldn't have given to have those kind of interaction, career development, and personal growth and development opportunities when I was in college. I think our placement office at UNC at that point in time consisted of somebody who scheduled appointments with whoever was willing to come on campus and interview students. And that was about the extent of it. I would say it took me, I was thinking about this as I looked at all these services. I would say in the real world, during my era, it took me probably a decade to have the kind of experiences that I see available to you here right now. So I really encourage you to think about that and take advantage of some of those opportunities. I guess I want to encourage you to, first of all, kind of follow your passion, whatever that is, you know. That might be reading the great American novel or whatever it is, you know, but follow your passion and do it with your eyes wide open, understanding what it's gonna take to follow that passion. And I really wanna emphasize one thing I heard Chantel say, and that is, boy, find people who you can talk with and interact with who are living what you believe your passion to be, and kind of get a feel for that. In my case, what happened was I had a neighbor who was a businessman, and he just started saying, you know, Doug, you ought to look at some other opportunities besides just thinking about the world of education. And I'm like, why? You know, I'm happy with what I'm doing. And he said, well, you ought to learn about it. And then so I got to thinking about the fact that my dad had been an educator my whole life. And my mom was mostly a housewife and raised the kids. So I grew up in this education world. The most influential adults in my life were coaches and teachers. And so I just followed that path. Well, at the prompting of this neighbor of mine, I just started looking at, you know, English major, education, how does that apply anywhere? Just started talking to people, and I can remember that first summer that I decided to do this, which was after about 3 years of teaching coaching, which I really liked. But I went out and I met with people in the publishing world, met with people in real estate industry, and met with people in the airline industry. That was at a time when the airline industry was growing by leaps and bounds. And I got a good job offer from American Airlines. American Airlines, and, you know, English major, that's what I had. And a couple years of teaching and coaching, and got a job in their HR department. And then, specifically because of my English major and my education background, they said, we're growing so fast, we need to develop what they call the management understudy program, to bring people in who are recent college grads, maybe had a little work experience, get them in on the ground floor of varying operating departments of American Airlines. And they looked and they said, well, look at this guy over in HR. He's got an English major, he's got some communication skills, therefore he was a teacher for a couple of years, let's have him do that. So they put me in charge of the management understudy program. From there, I got to go to the corporate headquarters in New York City in the management training department, actually designing and then conducting management training courses for American Airlines. And it just kind of went from there. Regional director of HR in Washington, D.C., and then got involved in a lot of employee relations work. And each place, I kept getting moved, and each place I was, starting in Chicago, well, maybe I ought to get an MBA degree since I'm now in the business world. So I got into Northwestern and started working on the MBA degree, got transferred to New York City, went to NIU, got transferred to Washington DC. It seemed like I could never get traction with any of these graduate programs, but I got recruited to go across the country in Los Angeles. Still don't know how or why they found me or offered me this job, but with a competitor, Continental Airlines in Los Angeles. And my work there in employee relations and a lot of employment law kind of things led me to see that probably a graduate degree in law might be more applicable to just my career, the way it was going. So I went to Loyola University after 5 years of torture, nights, weekends, and everything. Came away with my law degree and never practiced law, privately. I've just applied it in my work. And all I can say to you is, I guess you're all English majors, or, I will say to you that, that there's nothing more valuable to what I've done than I could have done any of it, that we all have all these different choices in front of us. And nothing has been more valuable to me than my English major, being able to communicate both the written and, hey, we're all English majors, we know that comes at a premium these days. There are an awfully lot of people candidating for jobs, trying to find work, who just don't have these basic, grammar and writing skills and kinds of things that help all of us. So then I came to Montana, had a couple of positions here, trying to retirement. That didn't work. Lucasite Pharmaceuticals asked if I would come over and spend about half time with them because we're a small company. That's about all they need for HR, and so that fit just perfectly, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm sorry if I took a little too much time.
No. Thank you.
My name is Becca, and I am the Director of Communications at Spring Hill Church, which we have 3 locations, one in Spring Hill, 2 in Bozeman, technically, I guess. MSU English major, grad 10 years ago. Best choice I ever made. Every job that I've had, I was so thrilled to do this, because really every job I've had has been in some way because of the connection of being able to think critically, communicate well, and have connections in Bozeman because of different programs. But I went to graduate school right after. I don't suggest that you do that, just because I think today there is a glut of graduate degrees that you can get, and most of them don't help you at all. I happen to have a completely worthless Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing that I loved. It was awesome. It was the funnest 2 years, probably. I know that is not a word, but I'm going to use it. The funnest 2 years that I've spent in school. It was awesome. And I say that being, I'm a published author today. I write romance novels. I write for Barber, and actually just this afternoon sold a book to Harlequin. And so I say that as a published author. The MFA was totally useless, but it was awesome and fun. If you want to write a book and sell it. That's just my advice. Don't go to school for it. My intention initially was to teach creative writing. I actually I taught during my MFA, and just found out that it was not for me. I wanted to write and not teach, and so I was looking for jobs that I could do on the side, sort of as I was writing, and I ended up going back to graduate school, which again, loved it. But the second time, probably because I was a little bit older, made a better decision. I got a degree in transformational leadership from Bethel Seminary in St. Paul, and I ended up after that working for Gallup. You probably know Gallup polls. I was what's called a strengths coach for them. If you've ever heard of Strengths Finder, which is very similar assessment tool to what you guys use at MSU. It was my job for several years to pretty much just go around and coach people in their what was great about them. And again, communication just is such a huge part of that. After that, I actually got a job through a different, it was not like you said, who you know, it's all about who you know, at Spring Hill. And I have been there for a year and a half or 2 years now, and it started off as a part-time job so I could write, because I had sold a book and I really wanted to just work part-time. It turned out that this church just grew. We went from 200 to 750 in a year and a half or 2 years, and have 2 locations with an office location, and it just has, they needed me to come on full time, so I did. So a lot of what I do is I'm responsible for all of the released written communication, web, social media, video, audio, and technology at both of the locations for the church. So I had to learn a lot that I didn't know how to do previously. I'd never cut video in my life, and I had to learn how to do it. But I think one of the things that the English major particularly well prepared me how to do was to know how to find what I didn't know. So it really prepared me well to be a critical thinker and to find where I needed to research, and then find the research and do it and finish it and be able to assimilate the information quickly. Which, if you are looking for how to translate your English major degree in a job interview, which can sometimes feel like majoring in unemployment, realistically speaking, you can get any job you want with an English degree, because you can spin yourself into any field, I think. So yeah, that's me. I'm a little high still. I literally, but 5 minutes before I left, got off the phone with the Harlequin editor. So I am like high on something. not money, but you don't get paid a lot, but yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you. I am psyched.
Go ahead.
My name's Ariana Polyvegas, and I came to MSU as a non-traditional student who had worked for many years waiting tables and doing all those things that you do just to get by. And I came back to school, said, okay, I've got to do something that means something to me. I've got to do something more than just getting by and having a life that is all about that. And so I came here and I had no idea what I wanted to study. And so the first couple of years I took a wide variety of classes, and I met a lot of professors, and I started really listening to the feedback I was getting on what other people saw as my strengths, and also on what I enjoyed and what seemed to mean something to me. And so I took the leap and became an English major, knowing that there's not a straight career path for an English major. There's no one who's gonna, as soon as you graduate, say, okay, we have an English major job for you. You have to go kind of find it. You have to figure out how you're going to use it. And that was scary, but it seemed worthwhile to me. And like Becca said, I've never regretted it. While I was finishing up that degree, I got a job working at the bookstore, just as a clerk. And of course, I don't know how much my English degree helped me get that job, but I did have to do 2 interviews to get a job as bookstore clerk. There's a lot of demand. People really want to work in bookstores. It's never quite what you think it is.
English majors.
Especially English majors. And I fought for that job, and definitely any kind of help you can get in interviewing, because you have to fight to convince people that you are the best candidate and that your English major has given you the right skills to do that. And so, working part-time there, and then I finished my English degree, still didn't know, what more was out there. I went straight on to grad school, and I got a master's degree here at MSU also in English, and I taught while I was doing that. And one of the things that I thought that did for me more than anything, because I was really shy, really uncomfortable in front of people, was that not just finding out what I was passionate about and what my strengths were, but finding out what my weaknesses were and challenging myself to tackle those and say, you know what, I'm not gonna let that stop me, because I really wanted to get this master's degree, but the only way I could afford it was to do the teaching. So I did that, and I ended up actually adjuncting for a couple of years, teaching writing here at the university after I finished my master's. I really liked it, but then my job at the bookstore was also progressing to the point where I was starting to take on more responsibilities, and I was, creating a website. English degree didn't teach me how to create a website, but it taught me how to figure out how to create a website. But I also knew how to write, so it helped me in all my communications, online, on the phone, with customers, with suppliers. And then I got lucky, quite frankly. The fact that the bookstore, the previous owner who'd had it for over 30 years, was ready to slow down, and she felt that she could trust me with it. And I think a lot of that certainly had to do with my demonstrating my hard work and my willingness to try so many things. And owning the bookstore now, nothing at all like what anyone thinks owning a bookstore is. You never ever read on the job. But you get to talk about books with people, and you get to have connections with authors and publishers, and you get to see this whole other side of the written word and the world of the written word, which completely fulfilled all my hopes of coming back to school and getting my English degree to do something that meant something to me. Never, ever regretted it. But, like Doug said, no clear path. There was nothing that ever said, here's what you're going to end up doing. But the English degree is absolutely the right one to prepare me to do what I do now.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Becker. I'm the city editor of the Bozeman Chronicle. I probably got into English for the wrong reasons. I was one of those arrogant high schoolers who got his ACT scores back and said, oh, that's where my lowest score was in English. I better bulk up on that. So I majored in English in college. It didn't turn out to be a bad choice. I mean, I like to write, I like to read. And I went through 4 years, 4.5, kind of low-key, graduating, and then I got to graduation and I realized I don't have any clear plan of what I'm going to do next, because I didn't really have a clear plan going in. I obviously didn't take part in the career services. So, on the eve of graduation, I did 2 things. I frantically applied for grad school here, and I looked through the newspaper for a job. Well, fortunately, they were looking for a weekend reporter. I went in, I sat down with the managing editor and said, I can find whatever information you want me to find. And I was confident in that because of 4 years spent researching English papers, and they believed me, so they gave me a job. So for the next 2 years, I worked weekends as a reporter for the Chronicle while doing grad school and teaching TA classes, and it worked out great. Then I got to the end of grad school, and I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. Because I didn't really want to move into theory. Theory is what I studied. Theory may or may not have been the best thing I should have studied, because I didn't want to do it for a job. And I didn't see any jobs other than being a professor. So I got a job editing. Because the one thing that stood out the whole time, from high school on, was that I liked working with other people's words almost more than I liked writing my own. So the Division of Graduate Education, as it was called then, was looking for somebody to edit theses and manuscripts. So they invented a job for me, and I spent 1.5 years editing the graduate and doctoral writing that came out of MSU. And then I thought, well, I'm going to have a family soon. I better get a better job. So I got another job. Luckily, the MSU News Service down in the Office of Communication and Public Affairs was looking for somebody. And the Chronicle wasn't looking for somebody full-time, so I left the Chronicle's warm embrace and went over to MSU, where the pace was somewhat different. I realized that over the couple of years I'd spent being a reporter, I really started to enjoy the pace of breaking news, of turning around a printed product every day. And I sat in my office, the only office I've ever strictly had, with a closed door and a window, and was bored 90% of the time, because you were asked to write 2 articles a week, and then some magazine assignments here and there. So I started writing letters to the editor, and I started writing comments on the Chronicle's website, because I wanted to get back in news, and I wouldn't really admit it to myself. And eventually the managing editor calls and says, corporate's gonna push out a digital initiative, and you've been bugging us enough, we'd like to give you a job. So I got hired back as the web editor. And at the time, there was no clear idea what the web editor was supposed to do, because while it was about 2009, believe it or not, newspapers had almost ignored the internet up until that time. So they really didn't have a solid plan at the Chronicle, and I was responsible for helping them put the solid plan in place. Starting social media pushes, campaigns, accounts, getting us onto multiple platforms, onto mobile devices. And then eventually a position opened up above me. I became city editor as well, and that's where I am today. So I spend a lot of time coding websites, and then I spend the afternoons reading copy. So it's kind of the mix of everything I've ever loved, the internet and editing other people's work. So I'm really happy with where I am. It almost, apart from the editing, which of course uses Associated Press style and not anything we used in college, I do write and read English still, so there's that. But the critical thinking has always been helpful. The resources and research skills that I was taught here, they've always been helpful. And simply being in a place long enough to have met so many people. The job affords many opportunities to meet people. All my jobs have. And so I find that I can, as having been a teacher and a reporter and a magazine writer and a freelancer and an editor, everybody knows who I am, which is great because I don't remember who they are. But it helps me open doors, and it's helped me into jobs, it's helped me into assignments, it's helped me get by in life. So making connections, fostering those has been really helpful, and I think my time at MSU really helped with that.
Thank you. Now's the time we open it up for questions. Comments, anybody? Go ahead.
I have a question for Becca Symes. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly.
I answered everything.
Okay. Well, you said there was a glut of graduate degrees which really aren't helpful. Could you name some of those?
Well, that's my opinion. As you'll see, both of my colleagues have graduate degrees from MSU in English and might disagree with me. But, and I say this because in my former job, when I was a coach, what I used to do was I used to literally coach people through their strengths and talk about where their career path should go. So I do a lot very similar to what they did. What I saw a lot of happening with college students and graduate students was what happened with me. I don't know what to do when I graduate, so I'm gonna spend $30,000 getting a graduate degree where I still won't know what I wanna do when I'm done. So instead of going to career services or taking assessments or whatever, so the reason I say that is because I think a lot of people do what I did. Instead of stopping and saying, do I really like theory? Do I really like, linguistics? Do I really like whatever? They just say, I'm gonna go apply for everything and get in wherever I can go. And they don't think about what's gonna happen when they graduate. And part of the reason I say that is because if you get into jobs competitively where you have a degree in creative writing from Minnesota State, which I have, and someone who has an undergraduate degree from MSU who is more qualified for the job than I am, to me, then I feel like I've wasted my money being not any more qualified for a job that I didn't know I wanted before I went to the degree. So I guess to answer your question, every graduate degree ever created is useless unless you're gonna use it to do something that you know you wanna do. Cause then these days, just having a graduate degree is not helpful, cause everybody's got a graduate degree. I have friends with PhDs who are unemployed. And I just think we should be careful before we just say, hey, you could go to grad school. So, but that's a good question. If you wanna get an MFA in creative writing, it's great, but I suggest to not do it.
Does anybody else want to comment on the question?
I would just, the one thought that popped into my mind is, basically what I hear you saying is, set a goal, have, you know,
Yes.
if you're gonna pursue a graduate degree, have it designed to lead you to a place you wanna go.
Yeah.
And you know, kinda like earlier I made the comment, go into these things, go into your job search, go into your major choices, go into graduate school with your eyes wide open. Meaning, you know, if you wanna invest $30,000 in a graduate degree because it's a field you get great joy and satisfaction from, you know, I think in some cases, that's your decision, right?
It's your money.
Again, I just say, go into it with your eyes wide open and not, you know, have some expectations and be sure that they're realistic. Kind of set those goals.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a difference between getting a graduate degree because you can and because you need it. And I have 2 graduate degrees and one of them is just totally useless and the other one was the best decision I ever made. So, yeah.
Other questions?
I have a question. What are some classes that maybe you guys would recommend taking? Like you said, maybe you should have done some business because you got another business degree that might help you with your career now. Like, are there any classes that these guys should maybe be taking in English?
You know, professional writing is always gonna be a good option.
Yeah.
If you're gonna move, if you're not gonna be writing narrative and you're not gonna be writing academic stuff, having some skills in technical and professional writing are gonna be a big help. Me, I would have taken computer science if I'd known I was gonna wind up where I am. But I can also think that if you wanna be this is just me being idealistic here, but if you wanna be a strong writer, you better bulk up on your mythologies. You know, if you wanna write creatively, you better understand that, if that's your goal. Readable story.
And Mythologies is offered. I'm from the Academic Advising Center. That is available this spring, so if you're registering for classes. And that's Lit 285, and it's a Phillips University course, so not a bad class to take.
I would say, you know, oral communication skills are always gonna be of help to you. So anything you pursue in speech, verbal skills, like you know, hard for you to imagine probably, but I'm basically an introvert. I mean, when I was an English major, I was really quiet. And, you know, you don't do at least in my case, it's not any particular thing that draws you out. I remember, I certainly hadn't finished law school, don't think I'd started yet, but I certainly had a degree and was well into my career, and I actually found out about Toastmasters. Has anybody here ever heard of Toastmasters? I mean, anything like that, for me, that was great. Anything designed to just sort of help you feel at ease, communicating verbally will always be helpful to you, no matter what. And in personal life as well as professional life, I think.
There are also some opportunities at MSU to TA at an undergrad level.
And I
Were
did
you-
those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did too. Was a CLS TA, and so there's some opportunities to get some mentoring on your communication too, which is different, of course, than class work. But that was great. I thought that was really helpful for me.
And in those kinds of, and sometimes they're called peer leadership kinds of opportunities, depending on what it is, but also depending on who you're working with, the particular instructor, you can say, hey, I want to see this side of it. I want to learn about this. And when you're working with that instructor can sometimes have some leeway in the kinds of responsibilities that they give you. And so you might get to, work one-on-one with some students on their writing, or you might get to prepare a multimedia presentation, or, there are many things that you might be able to challenge yourself to do in that kind of situation, but with someone there who can answer your questions and be helpful, and then it's that great experience that can lead you on to other things. So I did find that peer leadership opportunity was very much worth my time when I was an undergraduate. And I didn't know how much I would be working with computers or with numbers. So any additional instruction that you can get in
Yeah.
in a wide variety of things, but especially working with computers and the internet. I do social media, I do websites, all of that. I don't know if they have classes for that but
There are
So-
some classes, yeah, they're available this spring, so if you want to chat about that, I have the list,
Yeah.
I'm happy to chat about that.
That's a good point though, because I think you're gonna be hard pressed to find a communications job, because I belong to some professional organizations where I network with a lot of other people who are in communications for a living. You're gonna be hard pressed to find a communications job these days where you're not doing social media, websites of some kind, unless you're in a huge organization where you have your own IT or tech department or design department. So I would highly, highly suggest, even though it sounds like it would suck, probably for most of us, unless you're good at math. I hated math, but I wish I would have taken more math because I need it. And I wish I would have taken computer science because I need it.
And all the computer science majors wish they would have taken more communication and English and writing.
We all wish they
And
would
their
have
employers
too.
do
We got
too.
that workshop. Go ahead, what's the question? I'm
How
sorry.
about foreign language and English major?
I would say it depends on what you're gonna do after you graduate. In my job, I have absolutely no need for foreign language almost ever that I don't already know or know how to find because of translation services. But there are definitely places, and especially if you're going to grad school to be a professor or a teacher, you're gonna have to pass foreign language proficiencies, and it's way easier to take them now and know them now than to wait until you're doing your dissertation. But I don't know about you guys.
I took a solid year of Spanish, back when it was called core classes back then. And they had core 2.0 and they moved on to
Yeah.
like core infinity or something. But I had to take 6 credits in foreign language. I took Spanish because I'd taken 4 years of it in high school, and have I ever used Spanish on the job? No. But seeing the Latinate languages has made me a better writer because I understand word usage and word roots
Yep.
better than I did before the Spanish education. So for me, it provided a context, helped me understand words better, and made me a better writer.
You guys have any questions? Are you guys hiring? It's a good question.
Well, the Chronicle has internships available, unpaid. But we certainly welcome all interns who apply and meet whatever invisible criteria the editor has in his head, so. Also in graphic design and the other departments too.
Yeah.
Legacy Pharmaceuticals is not hiring at the moment. We might be at some point here in the near future because we have just entered into a merger agreement to be acquired by the largest pharmaceutical company in Japan called Takeda Pharmaceuticals. So we've gone from, being able to say, we are 40 employees to overnight being able to say, we are 30,000 employees all over the world.
That's
But,
crazy.
and we are the only vaccine company of Takeda in the United States. They do have some vaccines in Japan, but nowhere outside of Japan. But all that to say that frankly, I am surrounded by PhDs in the biological and chemical sciences. And so I'm just trying to think. I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. If any opportunity comes up for English majors, I'll be the first to let MSU know.
Yeah.
And that foreign language would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yes,
In your
that's right.
future.
You bet. Yeah.
There are some social media companies in Bozeman that are hiring right now, and a couple of them actually work near us. And I would actually encourage you, if you're an English major, to look at social media companies, because you get to communicate, and they are looking for good writers, and they want people who can say a lot of cool stuff in a very short space and who can be pithy. I will say, I work right across from CCAT Creative, and we've worked with Future Farm before, and those places are always expanding and looking for people who know how to communicate. So there definitely are places that are hiring. It's just, like you said, it's who you know. You gotta know who to ask.
And sometimes the employers don't know that an English major is gonna fit.
Mhm.
So communicating how your major and how your skills will fit into that position that they're hiring for is gonna be really important for you guys. And the coaches, Joy here is the coach in our office, are very helpful with communicating your skills to the job market.
Come on in, make an appointment. I can point you to some websites to help you figure out what you might wanna do. I think your point is well taken, Becca, about having a direction.
I just think we forget as English majors that we're trained in way more than just literature. Because we spend our whole class time critiquing each other, being able to pick apart arguments, being able to think about how to say things in a slightly better, more clear, concise way. And nobody else is taught how to do that. We think that everybody can do it because we're good at it and we enjoy it and we like it. A lot of places are looking for that right now, and they just don't know it until you tell them, well, here's why being an English major is better than being a graphic design major, because not only can I communicate better than them, but I can learn faster how to do whatever it is that I can't do. So I just really,
And we do that
Sell
in
that.
career services. We help you write
Yeah.
that letter
yeah,
to sell yourself. Cause you need to sell yourself more than tell anybody about yourself.
Yeah.
Sell, not tell, is
Yeah.
sort of
yeah.
sell it.
And we have less and less time, it seems like, anymore in our society to get your point across and to
Mhm.
capture somebody's attention and to set yourself apart from the other candidates, in my opinion.
And I'm not hiring right now. When I am, I do announce it on our website and in our email newsletter. And when I am hiring, I first go through the stack of resumes and applications, and anyone who clearly can't write or doesn't have a sense of grammar or spelling, or mostly because it just makes them look careless. If they don't care enough about that, I'm guessing that they don't care about a lot of other things too. Those immediately go in the no pile, so.
As we should.
That's a good question. What do you look for when you have a stack of resumes? I mean, what's the first thing you look for? What's the next layer? How do you feel that in your back?
For me, partly what I look for is someone who isn't just trying to tell me what's great about them, but someone who sees what it is that I'm looking for and then tells me how they can fill that.
Yep.
So I don't need to know, every little job you've ever had and everything you've done, but I need to know that you understand, what would be expected of you in this position, and that you can tell me that here's how my experience is. And it doesn't matter if you have work experience in a bookstore or, anything like that. If you can communicate to me that your skills translate for what I need, then that puts you near the top.
I would just add to that, it's interesting how many applications, letters of inquiry, resumes you look at where there's no indication from the person who's submitting it that A, they know anything about who you are, that not you personally, but your organization, what it's looking for, you know, and how that person could effectively fit into it. So I guess the word targeted comes to mind, you know, target those. Don't think you have one resume and one cover letter and just broadcast it. It won't
Yeah.
work, I don't think. I mean, maybe you get a lucky hit, but target who this is going to. Do a little research. It doesn't take a lot of time. Just find out a little bit about the organization you're gonna apply with and what it's like, one or two or three key facts about and work that into your letter of inquiry, you know, the letter that your cover letter that goes with your resume. And that kind of goes with another thing I look for is I want to see some evidence that a person cares enough that they've invested some time, effort, and energy to make this a professional presentation of themselves, you know, because there'll be a small number in that stack who have done that, and they're gonna have head and shoulders advantage over the many who don't.
And honestly, like, networking for us is so huge because when we open a job, and we've done this probably, I don't know, 6 times in the last 6 months, we get hundreds of resumes, and it's so frustrating to look through resumes and feel like you're seeing the same things over again. So you need to know how to differentiate yourself from the pile. And whether that is, you know, learning something about the company and saying that in your cover letter, or, you know, making yourself pop in some way, or putting, you know, specific qualifications on the front or whatever, it makes such a difference when you can tell that this person wants the job here. And it's not just, please give me a job that pays money. 'Cause everybody's getting way more resumes than they can handle these days, and you gotta stand out.
So I like that concept of, you know, trying to figure out something unique to make yourself stand out. And I just encourage, because of an experience I'll tell you about that I recently had, don't lose sight of doing it in an impressive and professional
Professional
way.
way.
Uh,
And don't put perfume on the letters, or, you know, fill it with glitter or something, like.
I received one a couple of weeks ago, when we were looking for interns over at our company at Legacy. And one came in that I guess I can only hope was designed to try to make the person look unique, but came in with a cover letter that was basically a text message with every little, abbreviation you could think of, no punctuation. It was just totally unprofessional and, creative, I guess, but,
They love that
very,
at CCAT
very
for feature farm.
unprofessional. Yeah, maybe there was something like that, but.
Thank you all for your participation, and thank you all for your questions. This is just a really quick graph from the Bureau of Labor Statistics about your degree, earnings, and your unemployment rate. So the higher your degree, less likely you are to be unemployed, and hopefully, except for those doctoral degrees, more money you're going to earn. I think it's because they all go back to teaching.
It's over 9 months.
Yeah. So we do a survey every year of our graduates, and our callers are in our office right now making these calls. After you graduate from MSU, you will get a call from Career Services asking you what you're doing, where you're working, how much you're making. Please accept those calls and answer the questions. It is really helpful to students like yourself to find out where they're going after they graduate and what's going on, and what's the potential for you. So in our last survey, we had here's our response rate. 78.4% of respondents are employed or in grad school full time. So our numbers are coming, and then, yeah, I won't get into that part. Average salary by year and degree, and this is just across the college, not finance specifically, but bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree. Here's our in and out of state average salaries again across the college. Obviously, generally speaking, you're going to make more moving out of Montana. We all kind of know that, but there's a reason why we're all here, right? And then here, this is by college. Those engineers. And then location of grads, employed grads by college as well. A lot of them are staying in state, so a lot of people are we're keeping a lot of you guys here in state, which is really good news for a land grant school like ourselves. Just some key points. We you hear this, I swear, every single workshop we do, there's some key points that you can draw out of every single one. Do an internship, give something a try. Communicate with your advisor, who you know, make some connections. A lot of times you'll hear that graduate's first job, or if they are unemployed later on down the line, they call back their advisor. What do you know that's going on in the industry? And they're good networkers for that. Attend some workshops. Thank you all for coming to this one. And meet with a career coach. And the career coach is really, as I was listening to everybody speak, they're going to help you figure out, like, what are your niches? Where can you go? Where your interests and talents are, and maybe that's something you can work into your degree and really set yourself apart when you're interviewing. And then, of course, use all of our services here at Career Services. They're all available to you. They're free. Take advantage of that.